What up guys and girls, Board now back with you, and on this video I'm going to be reviewing the 5th episode of the 3rd season of Glow, and the episode is called Freaky Tuesday. So quite an intriguing title. Obviously it's a play on the famous movie Freaky Friday, the remake with Lindsay Lohan, of course, Jamie Lee Curtis, and then there was an original film, I think in the 70s or 80s with Jodie Foster. So yeah, a couple of different versions. So it's a play on that title, and yeah, I was really amused when I found out why they were calling it Freaky Tuesday. And what it is in this episode, towards the end of the episode, the women decide, wouldn't it be fun to switch characters, essentially? So obviously, like, the mother and daughter switch, bodies in that film, Freaky Friday. So the wrestlers decide, let's change up characters. Let's have a switch around, to sort of freshen things up, make things a bit more fun. And I think it's almost this sort of idea of repackaging themselves, going for a fresh sort of start, and just having a bit more fun with the audience and a bit of creativity. And it's an interesting scene in the sort of dressing room with the girls debating, is this a good idea? Because, like, Ruth is one who's kind of against it at first. She's kind of saying it's actually the repetition that leads to better sort of, creativity, better, like, matches, because you can expand on the character each time. But in the end she kind of goes along with it. And I think one of the things this episode gets across is the fact that the girls are on this tour. It's been a lot of back-to-back consecutive nights, and for various reasons, whether it's through injury or fatigue, or whether it's just missing people that are in another state, their family, their friends, or just feeling very isolated, as you tend to do when you're on long tours and what have you, then they just want to let loose. They just want to have a bit of fun, and they just want to try something a bit different, which is what this switch around idea is based on. And I mean, before I get into that, because it is the big sort of centerpiece of the episode, it does start on a very serious note, the episode, because Tammy, who's played by Kira Stevens, who in real life is the wrestler Awesome Kong, we see her in the opening shot wake up in the morning, and we see she's starting to feel knocks, starting to feel wear and tear on her body. So we see her in the shower, and it's cutting back and forth, and we see a number of times her, getting in the ring, wrestling. We see Bash's ring introductions for her, very enthusiastic, and it's a really nicely cut scene because it's just shown the repetition of it. And we see that each time Tammy is just getting more and more tired, more and more worn down, so by the 4th or the 5th time, when she slides into the ring in the same way as she did the previous night, she does it more slowly. She's more kind of beaten down. It's harder to do, sort of thing, and we see that on her face. We see the way she slides in the ring. And I sort of like the ironic line from her when she wakes up in the morning. She says showtime, and very, very sort of deadpan. And that's another thing, that sort of repetition, the fact that, every day at a certain time you have to get up, you have to, it's back to the grind again. And that's what it's sort of getting across. But yeah, it's a darker sort of tone, because her back is really playing up, and she still has, 5 or 4 more dates to do, and it's becoming more of a chore. And I think that's one of the reasons why she's in favour of this sort of character change, because what she does is they've got like this really cheesy, this really sort of cringeworthy, like two old ladies type gimmicks, who at the moment they're being played by different people. And so Tammy decides she wants to play one of them because it's an easier going sort of character, more comic relief, and less physicality for her. So she decides to do that. But it's also, I think it's telling because I think it sort of says that she is feeling older, she is feeling worn down, sort of thing. So it's almost like kind of a metaphor for that. But yeah, that's kind of the darker, more serious side of the episode, and it actually ends, or near the end actually, when they're in the locker room right before Tammy's match, or maybe after, I'm not sure. But Debbie's in there with her, and she notices she's in a lot of pain. Because it's got to the stage where even doing the sort of lumber into the ring, in a simmer frame as part of the character, she kind of struggles to get through the ropes. The other wrestler has to help her. And so Debbie sees her in the locker room and sees, she's got a really bad back. And Debbie, I think this again is good growth for her character because she's generally concerned about her and doesn't want her to be put through this. She wants her to see to her back and get healthy and fit again. So yeah, and it really drills it home because Tammy is just saying, only 4 more dates. And that sort of shows, the grind and how wrestlers and people on tour are just encouraged to just get their heads down and just power through, finish the tour, no matter how much pain and how much fatigue there is. But the fact that she's saying 4 more dates, just 4 more dates, is also crucial to the plot of this episode, when I'll get into it in a minute, but when they are offered more dates, they're offered initially another 9 months. That's by the Gina Davis character, the Sandy, her name is. So she reappears in this episode. Really good to see her back. But things are going quite well. They're quite popular in Vegas. So Sandy says, yeah, we would like to offer you 9 more months. And Bash in this episode is awful. He's really superficial and shallow and a total dick. So he's kind of saying, yeah, sure, that's great news. We'll go for it. And Debbie, who of course is more hands-on now on the business side, she wants to think about it. She wants to think, is this the right thing? Obviously, it's 9 more months on the road, away from their home, from family and friends, and and obviously Debbie does think about the other girls. So there's an issue where Debbie steps in and says, actually, I think we should think about that and get back to you. And Bash and Debbie, they kind of get into it, which is sort of quite a funny scene just because they're essentially at this wake or this funeral for the business owner of the casino and hotel. He's died. Bernie, his name is, who Gina Davis, her character, knows very well, and she's doing this speech. So it's just this kind of funny little scene where they are having an argument at what is kind of a wake sort of about this. And one of the other girls tells them, this isn't quite the venue for it. But yeah, it becomes this big thing throughout the episode where Bash is consistently pushing for them to do it. And Debbie wants more time. She wants to think about it. And there's a really good scene with Bash and Sam, actually, where Bash is trying to force it down, well, not force it down Sam's throat, but is trying to convince Sam to back him up on it, than to win the girls around. And Sam doesn't go for it, and there's some great lines from Sam because Bash is just being a dick. He's just saying things, well, this is sort of a paid vacation for you. We find out actually that Sam has stepped in as the regular referee, which we see in this episode. So that's interesting. That's quite a nice way to cut costs in a way, but they obviously needed another ref, as was mentioned. But yeah, Sam just fires back with these sledgehammer lines. You know, he says, I'm not your fucking butler, basically. I'm not paid to be your friend and be nice to you and stuff. And he comes back later and says, don't throw your weight around. You're not very good at it. And Bash is a total dick. And I like this side of Sam because he's brutally honest. The way he delivers the lines, it's so matter of fact. And I think that's what's so great about the casting of Mark Mara as Sam, because he just feels like an everyday guy who kind of shoots from the hip. But, in this episode and as time has gone on, we've seen more of a humanity, more of a sincerity about him as well. The fact that he's doing it from a very human place. He is thinking about the girls. He's thinking, obviously, about himself as well. And can see what Bash is doing. Bash is just being very sort of self-centered. I think Bash has got a little bit lost in the razzmatazz of it. But it's a great scene, the way he just cuts Bash down and doesn't want any part of it. But it becomes a thing throughout the episode where Debbie isn't sure and Bash is trying to push it. And then at the very end of it, Bash basically goes behind all of theirs back. It's after the show. Bash comes in with Sandy and they're graduating the girls on a really good show. They enjoyed it. And then it gets announced by Bash that they're going to stay on for another year. And obviously Sandy doesn't know he's gone behind their back. And they get pissed at him, particularly Debbie, and Sam does as well. And Debbie really cuts him down. And this is kind of where Bash really goes over the line, because he says, in case you didn't know, it's my name on the banner. It's me paying for this, my promotion. So it is my show. I get to say whether we stay on or not. And if you don't like that, Debbie, you can just go. You can leave. And he says that to anyone who has a problem. So yeah, Bash in this episode more than ever is just being awful, and it's a big sort of dramatic moment. And yeah, I think that just ties back into Tammy, because obviously her back is getting really bad, and realistically she probably could do four more dates and get through it and then have a big break to rest up and heal. But yeah, now the demand of doing an extra year would just be too much. So it ties into that, the fact that yeah, Tammy's in sort of awful shape and couldn't do this, and Bash is just being harsh and cold and not really thinking about whether the girls can continue and just cutting their thing. He's just going with the momentum, with the money, not thinking about the humans behind the show. And that's what largely the episode is about. So really good stuff. Another interesting sort of plot is then Justine comes for a visit. Obviously, we found out previously Sam's daughter, so they're spending time together. And it's funny because, they're bonding quite nicely, but she has a screenplay as well, and she wants Sam to read it. And she gets a bit upset when Sam reads it in front of her and sort of runs off, and it's a bit of a thing. So then later on, Sam actually asks Ruth if she'll read Justine's screenplay. I guess there's a sort of a buffer, and maybe Ruth can provide constructive, thoughts on it. So that's an interesting development, but it's good sort of continuity, them returning to the Justine plot. And she's at the show later and is really enjoying it. And I should talk a little bit about the show, because it really plays out and it feels like an extended show. So you get all them swapping characters. And it's quite interesting. Then in the dressing room, Debbie actually speaks up for Ruth and says, if anyone should play the new Liberty Bell, it should be Ruth. And so they do a total role reversal where Debbie is now playing the heel Russian that Ruth was playing, and vice versa. Ruth is now Liberty Bell, but she's kind of repackaged in a way because Debbie has her match as like the Russian heel. And another thing which is amusing is actually Bash's reaction, because he has no idea that they're all switching characters. So his reaction when they all come out in different costumes is just hilarious. The reveal, he's just really drained and can't believe it. It's a great sort of thing. And there's an awkward moment actually where Debbie mentions to him, she's in character and just says, you've got some like hidden sexual secrets. So that's kind of awkward for Bash because of his, homosexuality, which he's been hidden away. But it is amusing his reaction when he sees they're all in different characters. But yeah, it's this repackaging of like the Liberty Bell, because Ruth just sits at a table, and then after Debbie has won her match as the Russian heel, she then speaks out like on the mic and sort of is this new version of Liberty Bell and challenges, and they have this fun back and forth match where they're in different roles. So it's almost like a new version, a repackaging of it, how they do in wrestling sometimes, and the fans get into it. It's a really fun match, and I love Sam's line as the referee, so it says, fuck me, that was trippy. And it just goes on and on, all the different characters but with different performances. And one touch I like with the Liberty Bell Debbie Rush, I forget the character's exact name, but their sort of match and feud is that after Liberty Bell, Ruth as Liberty Bell has won, is she another switch, another one of the ladies now as the new welfare queen comes out, partly to get a bit more heat because it's now a coloured version of the welfare queen, so they sort of use that to get sort of heat and stuff. But she comes in and challenges Liberty Bell and wrestles her, beats her out of nowhere, wins. So it's almost that sort of clever little thing they do sometime where they end one feud and start another. That happens a lot in wrestling, or it used to happen. It used to be something where they were really forward thinking and did like a really smooth transition one feud to the next. So we sort of see that. So we are seeing things that they do in real wrestling. They try out different techniques to progress or to start new feuds. But I did like that little touch. One interesting moment is with the issue of race and stuff, where Jenny, who obviously is of Asian descent, she takes issue with one of the other girls who is in fact white, playing her character, playing this stereotypical Japanese character, and she's doing the kind of stereotypical, she's doing a ninja gimmick basically, but doing the stereotypical kind of Japanese sounding voice. And what's interesting is she takes offense because, like Sheila says, wasn't that what you were doing? What's the and she cuts in and says, well, the difference is then it's a white girl doing that, so it's offensive. And Jenny makes a good point, but it's also, it is ironic. Sheila does have a point, because in a way, Jenny doing that as an Asian girl, as a Japanese person, in some ways it is doing a disservice to her own people, so in some ways I understand it is worse a white person maybe doing that, because it comes across as a bit more sneering or patronising. But yeah, it's sort of this contrasting like debate where in some ways it's a disappointment for an actual Japanese person to play up to the stereotype. But it's an interesting moment. There's a lot of fun and interesting things going on with all these character role reversals. So a lot of good stuff in the episode. Also, the stuff with Sandy is quite interesting, because she's kind of holding this memorial service, and up to now Sandy has been presented as this quite shallow sort of executive sort of businesswoman. And yeah, in this episode, I think she is showing a bit more humanity. She started to bond a bit more with Debbie, and I think it's sort of it's hard to tell when she's paying tribute to Bernie, if she's being sincere or not. You know, there's some odd sort of comments she's talking about him in youth, but she's also doing this speech about how he was different, how there was class to him, and how just the rise of commercialism. And you know, at one point she says, "Oh, there's a Burger King in the casino." He would really frowned upon that. So she is trying to present this sort of more moral sort of side to being a business person and owner. And it's quite amusing, her and Debbie comparing Bash and the younger sort of Bernie. But I think it's probably a credit to the way Davis plays her, the fact that actually there seems a bit more to her now, because she's a great addition to the cast. And I mean, if they were just doing the whole, you know, shallow businesswoman thing, that's fine, because it plays into the themes of the season, and she's great at doing that. But I think it's a credit to the skill of Davis that there is this ambiguity now where she might actually be developing more of a human character. But we'll have to see how that develops. Certainly some interesting scenes with her and Debbie. And actually, I forgot, just going back to the whole Freaky Tuesday role reversal thing. Sheila as Liza Minnelli, I absolutely love. That's just showing you the other side. Sheila becoming more glamorous, showing more sexuality as this Liza Minnelli type character. And that's almost inspiration from the previous episode where she really bonded with the drag artist. And so she's really encouraged her to explore her sexuality, her more glamorous side. So yeah, it's like, oh my god, look at Sheila sort of thing. So great stuff. Really enjoyable episode. Some really interesting stuff going on once again with the characters. And again, they're developing it really well. So some dark moments again. So great stuff. That's episode 5 of season 3. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. If you've seen it, like and subscribe. And I'll be back with more Glow soon. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.